Welcome to the Purpose Podcast with Dr. Jazz, where I'm your host, Dr. Jazz, and we journey to purpose together. I'm so excited because this week I have with me Krystle Mason. How are you doing, Krystle?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. You look good. I need to start wearing makeup on my podcast. So if you watching this on YouTube, not watching this on YouTube, just know that Krystle look good. Okay, and
Listen.
you need to watch it on YouTube.
Well, your male guests are usually very handsome, so just in case they watching, I had to be put together.
Okay, I got it. I'm gonna send your episode to them. I'm like, watch this episode. Okay. Let me introduce Krystle. That's funny. Krystle Mason is a highly motivated educational strategist that supports families and school leadership in building meaningful programs for all students. Krystle believes that supporting and educating young people is one of the most important jobs one can have. As an educator for over 13 years, Krystle has assisted hundreds of young people in finding their passion and planning their life after high school. Don't that sound like the Purpose Podcast? As a certified life coach, Krystle is devoted to the clients she supports one-on-one. It is important that people know that they have someone rooting for them and believing in them. She is committed to serving her clients and journeying through life alongside all those she encounters. And she is currently completing her doctorate in education leadership from DePaul University. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I know.
The struggle.
I know the struggle. So if you listen to the podcast, you'll know that what I do is I just jump right in. So I'm going to ask my first question, and that is, what does purpose mean to you?
What does purpose mean to me? So I have to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
When I think I started really getting into or trying to understand purpose, maybe when I was around like 25. And so purpose for a long time for me meant how I could support other people versus what it was that God actually called me to do. And so for a very long time, it was people-centered and not self-centered. And so now, as I've gotten older and, evolved and had some life lessons, to me, purpose is definitely meant to support other people, definitely meant to uplift and encourage and motivate. But as cliche as it is, it's what I was put on this earth to do. It's the reason that I'm here. And it is honestly about, it gives me a reason to wake up every morning. Trying to wake up every morning for other people didn't work out too well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I barely wake up for me, Jesus.
Hello. So, for me right now, it is my why. It is my, what am I here for? Period.
So I want to ask you about the before, like the 25 to whatever, like where did that mindset, because I feel like a lot of my listeners have that mindset about purpose, that it's about serving others. Where did that mindset come from and how did you debunk it?
Honestly, I think it came from church.
Yeah.
For me, I don't know. I don't know about other people, but it came from church. I think it's this, I'm a church girl, born and raised in the church. And so for me, I understood everything that I did had to be for the good of someone else. Thinking about me was the last thing on the list. A lot of the stuff that we do in ministry, a lot of the stuff that we do for other people, it's better to give than to receive, child. It's better to, and so if you don't have balance, you can just be so focused on the giving that you forget, like, I got to receive in order to give. I need something to give other people. And so there were a lot of things that I had to unlearn as I got older. And so not to say that it's, I totally believe that my purpose is to make other people great, but I can't do that if I'm not great first. My purpose should serve me too.
Yeah.
It shouldn't just it shouldn't
That's
just
your
serve.
quote. My purpose. Let me write that down so I can remember that when it's time to make your quote. My purpose should serve me too. No, that's good. Cause I think
Listen.
even in the when you were, I'm just gonna say 25 Krystle, 25 Krystle,
Hmm.
talking about giving. I think people, even when they have their purpose, still
Hmm.
believe, because most people's purpose involves other people, still believe that they're
Hmm.
supposed to give. Do you think that there's a way, and this is just a random question, that we could
Hmm.
be performing our purpose, I don't want to say unwell, not performing our purpose well because of that? It's not
Hmm.
serving us too. That's just a good thing. Like that was a
Yeah.
good quote.
I think I think so I think it's twofold. So like, I have a client now, um, and her issue is she is 100% a people pleaser. And
Mm,
so she is in her mid 30s, and she's finally in a place, she's in therapy. She's, being intentional about trying to combat this people pleasing thing that she has going, that she's been her whole life. She's
mm-hmm.
the oldest child. I don't know. I think it's something about those older siblings. They be stressed out. But
The
she
whole
has all
family rests
the
on you.
whole listen, it's a her. I'm the baby, so I don't know that struggle. I'm gonna do what I want. Uh, so, but she, even though she works, I believe she works in her purpose. She's not fulfilled by it because she doesn't go as far as she could because it might not please everybody else. And so, like, she's on like the edge. It's like God is like, just jump, sis, jump. And she like, nah, because then my child wouldn't be good. Or my husband might, or my mom or and I'm like, but girl, they good.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
great. You're the one who's in this constant fight to, truly be who God authentically called you to be.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people are stuck there. And that is even, we can even get into a conversation about identity issues and identity crisis. I'm 36 now. So 11 years ago, I was a completely different person than I was today. I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
a completely different thing. And that thing affects your identity. My client attaches a lot of her purpose to her job. That's not it's not the same, and we get caught up in that. I was my profession, I'm an educator. But in this pandemic, God has released a lot of other talents that I've hidden because it
Mm-hmm.
didn't have anything to do with what I went to school for. And so now I'm unlearning, like, well, everything, Krystle, don't have to be about education. You can do a
Yeah.
lot of you can do a
Yeah.
lot of things to serve people. That's just
Yeah.
not the only thing. So I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. It's not a healthy balance of, why do I have to just do this one thing? Why is my purpose just this one thing? My
Yeah.
purpose could be a lot of different, so.
Yeah. I'm learning, man, that you speaking to me. That's why I'm like, because over the past year, people on the podcast have heard my story a million times, but I don't know if you know, I quit my job last January, right before the
Mhm.
pandemic started.
Mhm.
And it's been a ride ever since. Like, and the
Girl.
Lord just showing me this is your purpose, right? And
Yeah.
us carving out what that looks like. And mine is similar to you. I help people find theirs. Basically, my purpose is to help other people find their purpose.
Mhm.
Um, but he's also showing me like the different avenues that's happening through. So I do three different things that are like totally different, but they're all like, this is where I have you. And it's been such an interesting
Mhm.
journey that you
Mhm.
gonna life coach me when it's over.
Right. But how do you feel? Like, how do you feel? So do you feel like you couldn't do multiple things before?
I just don't think I knew, because I had
Okay.
such a worker mindset,
Mhm.
of you go
But
to a job and you get money and then you live your life, right?
yeah.
And the Lord is showing me that my life is one seamless stream. It's not
Mhm.
just work, fun, right? Like it is is a single stream.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know. Like he's really
Mm-hmm.
just opening my eyes. And now every time he presents something else and says, do this, I'm like, yes, because that aligns with that. You
Right.
know, but before, like I have a radio show now. Why? I don't know. But you know, but I do. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm learning
And
that.
so, last year in 2020, I hope you can't hear, they just decided to start mowing my lawn outside. I apologize, listeners. Um, but last year I was laid off of my job. And so it was, because I also have, I was raised by teachers. Both of my parents are retired school educators. My family is full of educators. So of course I became an educator.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my job, and that was a really a huge blow to my ego. It was a huge blow to my identity. It was never in my plan to be an entrepreneur. That was never the goal for me. I was completely okay with supporting everybody else that was, but that was never what I thought that I was supposed to do, because first I didn't see it. And, sometimes we often align our purpose with what those that influence us are doing, instead of really just trying to figure out, well, God, what you telling me to do, and then we feel guilty when it looks completely different than what everybody else is doing. Listen, I don't want to start preaching on here, but that
Listen,
is
this is a good episode already. It's only been about 10 minutes.
but that was the battle for me. And it was, man, okay, Lord, I don't have a job, but I know my worth. I know I'm not
Mhm.
about to just go be a crossing guard when I'm about to have a whole PhD. I know I'm not about to settle for this out of fear, because I don't know what it's gonna look like on the other side. And so, like you said, it freed me up, that whatever I did, whatever I dreamt about, whatever,
Mhm.
divine connection I was presented, I went with it, and that's how I'm here right
Yeah.
now, 2 businesses later.
Yeah.
And so I feel it's hard. Purpose does not mean your journey is easier. This is probably much harder than just me going into a classroom, teaching, and coming home.
Yeah.
Because it's all on me. It's all on my shoulders now. But it's a different type of sleep that I get now,
Yeah.
you know. And so that's where that's where people get stuck. And I'm trying to
Yeah.
help people get unstuck.
Yeah.
And I'm still in the journey of getting of getting
Yeah.
unstuck.
It's a mind thing. It's a mind thing. I had to unlearn a lot of things. And I wasn't taught bad things, right? These
Right.
things are not bad. They are just not for me. And I had to unlearn that the way my parents live life, the way my grandparents live life, is
Mm-hmm.
not the way God is calling me to live life. And
Yeah.
what you said was we align our purpose with what we've seen. That
Mm-hmm.
I can speak to that because I feel like I just knew this is what was going to happen. Right.
Yeah.
Even up to the PhD. Like now that I'm looking back on, I'm like, why did I want a PhD? Like, and I really think it was because my mama just said you're gonna be a doctor at one day. And I was like, okay. Like at first I was gonna be a vet, then I was gonna be a medical doctor.
Yeah.
Like I in my brain, now that I look back, I'm like, how did I end up at Baylor?
Listen,
Like I have no
listen.
clue.
Let me tell you, I remember I told my father, and this was probably a few, like 5 or 6 years ago. Well, no, it's probably like 10 years ago, probably when I was 25. And I said, Dad, I'm gonna get my doctorate. And he was just being the encouraging black man, black father that he is. And he said, listen, you getting this doctorate will change the entire trajectory of our family line. Now, why you
That's so much pressure.
that's too much. But this is the thing. Now me getting it changed from me just wanting it. It
Yeah.
changed to, Lord, now I got to change the whole trajectory of my family lineage.
Right.
Change, and so even if I decided, even if I wanted to change my mind, now I'm living with, dang, I'm gonna disappoint my dad, and that's really what happens. Like that's really how we
Yeah.
get in certain places. Would
Yeah.
I have even gone to college if it was not pressed? Like it wasn't a choice. Krystle didn't have that choice. Not saying
Mhm.
that it was a great journey, But I think about that often. Like we do stuff because, especially if you are a people pleaser, like me, you do things because you don't want to let people down.
Yeah.
And so now you 40 and you like, well, I still let people down, but now I'm
Right.
not doing, I'm, now I'm not doing anything that makes me fulfilled, you
Right.
know? So,
No, that makes sense. So I actually had to send my essay to get into Baylor to somebody like last week, and I
mhm,
read it. And the first sentence literally is, "I never had." I think it was like something about I never questioned whether I was going to college or not. The
hmm,
question in my home was, "What college are you going to?" Not, "Are you going to
you
college?"
going,
Like that
yeah.
was literally like the first two sentences of that of that statement. And I think that's interesting that you're saying this, because I honestly, I never thought about that either. Like, why did I go to college? Like, I don't even know. Like, I have no clue. But it was just the
No,
next step. And I think
listen.
a lot of people listening are probably in that same, I don't want to say
Mhm,
rut. I'm gonna say a flow.
mhm,
They're at a flow of life
yeah,
that is comfortable for them. That is just,
yeah,
I'm doing what was paid in front of me. And they may
mhm,
be battling. So listen to Krystle. She said we align our purposes with what we've seen, and that is not
listen.
always okay. So
It's not.
go see something else.
Listen.
Uh, so Krystle, you alluded to your journey
Mhm,
from educator to life coach to cake baker,
mhm.
maker. What are they called? Bakers? Lord,
Bakers.
thank you, baker. Can you tell us how that journey started and how you
Ooh,
got here?
ooh, child. So my journey um has been a series of me learning to be okay with my life not looking the way that I thought it was going to look.
Mm,
And so I am a planner by nature. Now I'm not super, rigid, but I am I was the girl that knew I was going to be married by 24 and knew I was going to have a boy and a girl. None of that has happened. But I was that girl. I knew I was going to go to college. I knew this. I knew I was going to be making this amount of money. I knew, and so the consensus of the journey, the issue for me has been a constant battle of it doesn't look the way that I planned,
mhm,
and still trying to find contentment and happiness in the way that it looks currently. And so that has been my journey. It has been a journey of me stepping out because I'm very private. So it's hard, like, even with this business, it's very hard. Like, listen, I love your videos and you going live. It's very difficult. That's a very difficult thing for me to do. I hate going live.
me too. Actually, me too. Actually, it makes me very uncomfortable. I'm sweating in every
Oh,
video. I'll be shining.
I hate it. And I'm like, Lord, why do I hate? Like, I hate it. I hate, ugh, it's the worst. Even though, I'm a singer, I can sing on the stage, baby, but standing in front of a phone, I don't want to do that. And so it has been just a constant journey of God just pushing me, and I never, I honestly don't feel like I ever really make choices. I feel like God just pushes me because he knows I'm not going to just,
Mm,
you know, do it on my own. That's why I stay losing a job. I stay getting laid off.
yeah.
And every time it happens, it's always a higher level. And I always get pushed into a higher season of momentum. And, just, it just takes a while for me to move forward. And so I think the biggest thing that I've learned in my journey is just, to stop comparing my life
Mhm.
to everybody else's. I think what's hard for our age group, social media was created for us. So it's been a part of some of the most pivotal years of our upbringing. And people don't understand that. And so I try to tell my students, like, listen, they created Facebook for me.
Mhm.
And so we've been dealing with looking at other people's lives or their highlights for over 2 decades. And so
Quite literally, like I'm trying to remember, like
listen,
when, yeah, it
listen,
really, I was, yes,
yes, Facebook started, I think my junior year or either my sophomore year or junior year of college. That's when
yes.
Facebook started. So we
When
have
you had to
been
be invited back then.
and you needed a college
Yeah.
email. Okay. And so I think it's difficult for our generation to not focus on other people's highlights.
Mhm.
Because people, we're not posting the bad stuff. We know that. It takes, I am a selfie girl. So it takes, I'm the 10th selfie, y'all gonna see that one. You're not gonna see the first one. You're gonna see about number 7, number 8. You're not gonna see 1, 2, and 3. Um, but that has been my journey. It's definitely like you said, a renewing of my mind every season of just, this is my walk. It's not
Yeah.
supposed to look like anybody else's. Um, and just continuing to remind myself of why God put me here.
Yeah.
And so also understanding that purpose is a balance of selflessness and selfishness. And so being okay with that, I think within the last 5 years, we've become as a community, we've become engaged with self-care and being selfish and caring about our mental health and caring about what matters to us. And you know, we that wasn't our thing. And I know
Yeah.
you remember that wasn't our thing growing up.
Mhm.
Self-care. No, what's that? You should be
No.
okay.
Yeah.
You
My
not
daddy
okay?
is the king of you all right.
You all right?
I'll be
What's
like,
wrong with
Daddy, my arm is broken. You all right. What? The
like,
king.
I can't be. What you sad for? You ain't got no reason to be sad. Wait a minute. I can't be sad. Like it's, and so all of that stuff, depression is a real thing, baby, and it
Yeah.
affects, how you view, and it don't change. And to the person that knows their purpose, you still are going to be affected.
Yes.
You're going to be hit even harder,
Yes.
because you absolutely are 100% clear about what it is that you're supposed to be doing with your life. But to me, I honestly, when I talk to people, it's all about identity. I think your purpose is rooted in how you see yourself, in my personal opinion. And if you don't know who you are, you're never going to know what you're here for. It's impossible. You got to know who you are, and you got to be okay with next week. You might not be the same person, right? Like in this pandemic, millions of people have lost their jobs, which
Yeah.
means millions of people have lost their identity because
Yeah.
that's what we associate identity with. This is what I do. And so we have to separate who we are versus from what we do. It's not the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's very hard for people to I just want to, I don't know, have a plant farm and it don't have to make sense to me. If your purpose
Yeah.
is helping, is healing people through plants, baby, heal people through plants.
Right.
But we so deep, and sometimes the church can make us so deep and so spiritual. No, it's not even that. And your purpose also ain't got to make you, ain't got to put you on a platform, because that's what we think. If I'm not on a stage, then I'm not in purpose. That ain't got nothing to, it's not, it's just interesting the way people view purpose.
Yes. So I have a lot of questions. I should have wrote it down. The first thing I want to say though, because the Lord reminded me as we were talking, one of the things that's helped me renew my mind, and this is not about you, this is for anyone who's listening. I
Mm-hmm.
had to stop saying I hate. Because I used to say, I hate going live. I hate making these videos. And my friends, if you look at the beginning ones, you could tell that I hate making them videos. You can tell, like my friends would text me like, you need to stop until you get it together. Like, this is not the way you talk to people. Like, you
Help
look
me.
crazy, like all this stuff. And the Lord had to change my wording. And he said, because if you hate it, right, that'll come through it. But say you're uncomfortable. It's okay to be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So for all those who are listening, every part of your purpose is not going to make you comfortable. And you're going to have to do it anyway. Like, those videos, trust me, baby, if it was not the Lord who said go live, you would not see my face. You would not. And then he even telling me to go live more. I'm like, whoa, let's stick to
Listen,
these 2 days a week. We gonna
listen.
figure it out.
Calm
Like,
down, Jesus. Calm down.
calm down.
But you're right.
Um,
You're right. It's definitely in my language, and I definitely need to. Whew, it's tough. Oof.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've learned over this years to change my language,
Yeah.
because we really do speak life and death, and
Yep.
I'm learning more and more that that's what I need to do is speak life over myself. So being uncomfortable feels different than hating something. And I'm telling
Mm.
you, I was there like 3 months ago, 4 months ago. Yeah, whenever these lives started. Uh, but I'm way better now. Okay, the actual question, is this identity piece like is really challenging me.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I used to be my identity was wrapped up, not really in what I did, because I did so many random things,
Mm-hmm.
but I learned I'm in therapy too. And this morning, what I realized is my identity is wrapped up in the amount of money I make.
Ooh.
Not that I want to be rich, but I definitely live on daily bread. The Lord gives me my daily bread. Okay. And and I realized this morning that my identity is wrapped up in that I can't quote unquote take care of myself, even though I do. But
Mm-hmm.
to me, it's like if I miss 2 paychecks, it's over, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so how do you get your clients out of whatever falsehood their identity is stuck to?
Whew. Um. So, and let me say this. So my I am the chief of staff at my church, and
Mhm.
so of course that has gotten me, much closer to my pastor, and so him and I have a lot of conversations about identity, and what identity means, and so he is the one, honestly, that in this season has really helped me, to understand what. Um, First of all, understanding who I am. And so it's as simple as, it was interesting. I asked a client this question, like, who are you? Right. And so if you honestly, if anybody listening, if you are trying to figure out your identity, just write down who you are. If a majority of the things that you write down are things that you do, you don't know who you are. And so once
Okay.
when I understood that, I said, well, dang, I don't know. Um,
I'm
when
sitting here like, how would I answer this? I'm afraid to answer the question.
listen, but that is how we've been socialized. We've been
Yeah,
socialized that who are you? I'm a cop.
yeah,
Well, what if you got fired? Oh, then I don't know. Well, what? And that's how a lot of us, if we honestly had an honest conversation with ourselves, we associate what we do with who we are. It's not the same. And it really does take it takes a level of vulnerability. You got to be
yeah.
vulnerable. And that's the word Black folks hate. Uh, Especially this Black person does not like to
I'm
be
like the
vulnerable.
total opposite. I'm like, let's just share our hearts, everybody. I went to a predominantly Caucasian church while I was at Baylor. And
Hmm.
it's just we just talk about we just went deep so quick. And now that I'm back in
Wow.
a us church, I be like, what we gonna talk about the real stuff? Cause y'all, you depressed,
Listen.
you anxious, your mama got you on your nerve. Like, the other people, Caucasian people, they just be
Hello?
talking.
They just be talking, child. You like, I don't think I asked you, but
But
okay.
it's so freeing
It is.
though. It's
It
so
is.
free. And now I'm telling you, now that I'm back at my shout out to Fruit Fellowship, I do love y'all, but we gonna work on this vulnerability piece. Um, be like, we're not gonna talk about what's really going on because I saw
Listen,
it happen. Like
listen,
that was
listen.
traumatic.
But see, this is the thing though, sis. It's difficult for me to do it as, first of all, transparency is, it just is what it is. We live in a culture now where everything is fake, nothing is real. You know, I tell my best friend all the time, you know, my best friend is a film director. He directs films and he directs sitcoms and, you know, be blowing up. And so him and I have conversations all the time. And he's like, well, Krystle, I'm not posting the job I didn't get. I'm just posting the time I directed ER. And I'm like, well, fam, I want to know, you know, and he was like, no, people don't want to know that. And we have to adjust our culture to where, you know, when someone says, how you doing? Fine is not an acceptable answer. You know, what does that mean? You know, let's dig a little deeper. Now, of course, you know, people, we are who we are, but that's up to us to really have those meaningful conversations, because there are a lot of people who have no clue who they are, baby. They are in an identity crisis. And we just continue to give them platforms. We can continue to give them microphones. We continue to listen. And you just fake and phony.
And they lead. Let me tell you. I went on, you know how you go on the whole of IG. I went down this whole rabbit hole of IG, and I stumbled upon this man that was just giving relationship advice.
Oh my goodness.
Kind of stuff. Not Kevin Sanders. This is another
okay.
man. No, not Kevin Sanders. Because he, low key, I ain't gonna lie. Some of the stuff he say truthful. It's the delivery. I be like, oh, you had to talk about her like that though.
But this the thing though, Jazz. Ain't no way I'm gonna let no Nick. I don't know if I can say that on this podcast, but ain't no way. There's no way, because of how solid and who I am. I want the truth, but you never gonna be able to sit here and talk to me disrespectfully, because I don't know who I am, and I'm willing to take it because you're telling me who I am. Nah, baby, you not. But that's a level of identity. I'm not trying to get deep, but that's just what.
No. I mean, so this time you can go wherever you want to play. But that's the issue with him for me too, because it's like you are literally putting values on women that already are like they're valuable, right? Like their value is immeasurable, and that's the part that like irks me. Yeah. Okay. But that's not even the dude I was talking about. It's some random dude, some light-skinned dude with tattoos on his face, which doesn't matter, but you might stumble upon him one day. And he was just talking about how basically women don't want regular dates, book her a trip for her first date. And I'm like, some woman who can't book no trip for herself go watch this video and say, you ain't booked me no trip for our first date. You not worthy of who I am. And I'm like, how many regular people are we still in the pandemic? Am I missing something? Like, how many regular people gonna drop plane tickets on the first? And I was just like watching the comments, and I was like, wow, like y'all believe this? Like, this makes sense to y'all.
I've seen that post numerous times, and I'm like, first of all, I'm not going nowhere, and I don't know you. We going to a whole nother country, and I don't on a first date, and I don't know. Make it make sense. But you know.
And I just think that when you don't know who you are, things that are not logical, you just what does the Bible say? This generation looks for signs, and we just follow the signs. Like, oh, this person's hot today. Like, I'm telling you, Krystle, when I was reading the comments, I was like, oh, y'all crazy.
Yes.
Y'all crazy. Who was sir? I just met you last week.
Yes. Listen, let me tell you, I had and I don't know if I'm sharing too much, but he's not listening to this podcast, so it's all right. So there's a young man that I have, we've been, cool for a very long time. And so we had a real conversation yesterday. And so what I've learned in this space of my life is that the only way to really start breaking chains and really start being in real, right relationship with people is being completely authentic and vulnerable, and let the chips fall where they may. And sometimes, we have decided what people are going to be able to help to handle. And that keeps us in a lie, living a lie. And it's not fair. And him and I had this conversation because I'm that type of chick. You know, I'm the type of chick that, you know, I'm the one that's not calling you back. Like, that's my person. I was raised by my brothers and my daddy. That's how, you know, I'm that type of girl. And so finally, when it got to a point where he's like, well, just tell me the truth. Like, let's have a real, it was the most meaningful conversation that we've had in a very long time, off the strength of me just being completely exposed. Yeah. And so I think if we think that way about everything, it starts to reveal, you know, we want to look good, but we're not good. You know, when my friend asked me, when we first started having this conversation about identity at 36, because nobody really ever asked, have you ever really been asked, you know, like, we don't really talk about it. We just base what other people say about us. And now that has formed now, you know, and so I had to acknowledge, because identity is great. And there's some things about me that suck. Yeah. You know, but when I acknowledge it, I'm able to move. If I'm really trying to be the best version of myself, I'm able to move a little differently in life, because I'm 100% not hiding behind my success or my lack of money or my abundance of money. You know what I'm saying? We can't hide behind that stuff, because it does not make a difference. If you're trash rich and you're trash poor. And that's what I tell my clients. My question is, baby, are you trash? Are you a trash person? Yeah. Are you mean to people? Do you have a stank attitude? Who hurt you? Yeah. Who affirms you?
Ask me that all the time. Every time I get an attitude with him, he be like, who hurt you? I'm like, no, nobody hurt me. You wrong. Dude, don't y'all trying to get out on this.
Listen. And so oftentimes, you know, women, because, you know, a lot of the media is predatory towards women. I said what I said. No, but women, we are sold more self-help stuff, and men are just like, y'all can just be who you are. It's okay. You a man. Right. And so now it's just as many, you know, you got women, and I'm not saying that there are not men out here, hear me. I'm not saying that there are men out here who are not trying to be their best selves. But what I'm saying is women feel like we have no choice.
Yeah. And men just have no choice. Show up.
And y'all can just, you know, culturally, they can. Yeah. And we can't. We have to be doctors. Yeah. You know, we have to be cute on camera. Yeah. Right. We have to be, I'm just keeping it, let's just have a real conversation. And so the way that my identity is formed is also formed because I'm a Black woman. I'm a marginalized person, and I'm a marginalized gender. So that also impacts how I see myself. Yeah. And it's not about what I do. And once I was able to decipher what I do is just what I do, that's over there somewhere. But let's talk about who I am and how I see myself. I was able to walk in a completely different swag than I've ever been able to walk in before, because I'm owning the bad and the good. I'm not just saying I'm, you know, so I don't know if that was a lot, but that
it's perfect.
But that is how we get to purpose. We get to purpose, especially when we 36, when we 40, when we 50. You know, I even talk to some older people, and I have a older friend. She's 50 plus, and she's just now going back to school to finish her degree. But it took a lot of unpacking for her to feel confident enough, because, you know, and I'm like, girl, you know how many people are 60 getting degree, you know, and my mind is easy. It's just like, just go. But that's really a place of disappointment for her. It really became a part. Her identity was wrapped in, I dropped out of college when I was 20. Yeah. You know, and she's been carrying that for 30 years.
Yeah. A lot of my clients, not a lot, but I'm about to say a lot again, but not a lot. A few of my clients are older people. That is so interesting that they've built these lives. They've raised kids. They're retired. And now they're like, I didn't want to do none of that. Well, not the kids, whatever. But like that's not how I
But
want to spend
listen,
my
they might not
life.
have wanted them kids.
Well, that's true.
Listen,
That's true.
listen.
And like now they're trying to figure out what am I put on earth to do. It's so interesting because we have to undo a lot, right? But they
Yes,
have to undo so much
so
more
much. Yeah.
than we do. And it's just so interesting to hear their stories. And one of my clients came up to me, she was like, you know how they joke around about your childhood matters? I was like, yeah. She was like, I've just now realized that the way I raised really did. And I was like, girl, you 65, you just not, of course I didn't say that, but that's what I
But
was
it's true.
thinking. And
Yeah.
but also like back to what you said, but we grew up in an era of self-reflection. So they didn't like our parents, our parents, like they didn't, what is self-reflect? Like me and my mom were having a conversation. She was like, Jasmine, you just going too deep. Like she literally was like, girl, you on your own with this one. And I was just like, okay, and I moved on. And it's not that I'm learning also with my clients that to think this way takes practice.
Yes.
To say I am not my job or my identity is rooted in this, like those things take practice.
Yeah.
So what are some things that you have told yourself or you tell your clients, like when they come to you and say, my identity is that I am a cop, right? My identity is that I'm a mother. Well, I guess that could be. But anyway, what do you say to people to get them to say those things? Because you said if majority of what you write down is what you do, then you don't know. So how do you get them on the other side of that?
And so that's when I encourage therapy.
Okay.
Because I'm not a therapist.
Yeah.
Right. And so as a life coach, it is my job to make sure that I provide you the resources you need to get, like you tell me the goal, and baby, I'm here to, cheer you on to the finish line. But I am a big advocate for therapy. And so of course that's very difficult with my male clients because, I don't, I'm not going to get into that, but but I encourage therapy. You got to talk, because it most of the time you'll find out, just like your client, it goes back to childhood. And as your life coach, I don't have that kind of time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not what you're there for.
That's not what I hate to sound mean, but I don't. That's not what I'm here for.
Me. I think that people that are listening to this and might want to reach out to you, like they need to know what services you offer. She got your therapist, y'all. She is.
I got my own, and so but we are, especially if Black people have trauma. I don't care what type of Black person you are. I attended Hampton University. Jazz went to Xavier. We were around a lot of different types of Black people, but we all shared trauma. We all have some type of trauma that has thoroughly impacted who we are as people, and it either pushed us forward or either prevented us from being the best version of ourselves. And so I encourage us all, we got to talk. Who are we talking to? Because like you said, when I try to talk to my 70-plus-year-old parents, they like, girl, but we made it, child. We free. Ain't nobody finna talk about this all day, girl. Turn on Judge Joe Brown, child. I'm not finna, Krystle, you doing too much. Like that's
no, for real. It's so funny because I'm like, okay. And I don't even argue. I was like, all right. I don't even try with my daddy. My dad, he would look at me like I was crazy. Like, girl.
Listen.
What do you need?
You want a hug? Like
my dad probably like, why are you crying? I love him. He is I love you, Dad. You are the best. But baby, when it comes to my emotions, you don't know what to do.
Listen, I was raised, my father, from a child, his thing was never let him see you sweat. That was his, and that thing affected me mentally. I can own that now because I don't cry. Because that's people seeing you sweat. And my dad said to never let people see you sweat. And now when I'm in relationships with people and they're like, well, how do you feel? I'm good. And they like, well, tell us more, Krystle. No, I'm straight. My daddy said, like,
don't let you sweat.
And so you take that stuff with you, baby. And it's just,
Yeah.
so I that is the moment that I encourage my clients that they really need unpacking. It's a lot of unpacking that needs to happen. And that's, of course I can get you, somewhat far, but it's not, that's when therapy is key. We all need to talk to somebody because we all struggling.
That's good, because I'm thinking about all the things that sound like, don't let them see you sweat. Like, that sounds good. And in some places, like in negotiations, right? That makes sense. You don't want them to see you sweat. But in relationships, it doesn't. Like, when I'm trying to think about, like, one of the things that my mom used to say, she would literally give me time limits on being sad. So depending on like the severity of the thing, like it would range from like 30 minutes to like 3 days. If my boyfriend broke up with me, she may give me a week. Like it just depends on.
She like, all right now. Time's up, sis. That's enough. Like, dang,
but the thing is, like, in a way, that makes sense because I don't get to wallow in it. But then the other half is that, like, wait, I'm not done, and it's been a two-edged sword in that, like, now I know how to process things, but I'm also like, sometimes that stuff come back, and my fault is I thought I already did this. Yeah. I gave myself the week. And I have processed and I have moved on. And then 2 months later, when it come up, I'm like, listen, we done.
Yeah.
And
that's reflective of, I just see, I really do believe that social media has impacted the way that we think, because just as quick as information changes online, we think that we should be moving on too, just as quick. And it's like, I'm still grieving George Floyd, but we had a whole new situation, with Ma'Khia Bryant, but the world has moved on. Yeah. And so I think that we don't give ourselves enough time to sit in stuff, because we do have parents who are like, all right, girl, that's enough. Like, you still,
You still say?
But but even with purpose, it's not, I prayed for years. Like, Lord, show me what I'm supposed to be doing. Please, what am I here for? Show me. And it wasn't just a one and done. That thing has changed over time. It has evolved. It was things that I didn't even know I wanted, because at the time I didn't. And so we don't give ourselves enough grace to figure it out and to be sad and another thing is, we don't celebrate stuff. Like, we celebrate stuff when we feel like it'll matter to other people, but we don't celebrate stuff just because this is a big deal for me. Like, I took a shower today. Let me celebrate that. Like, it's people out here who can't get out the bed, and we don't.
That's real.
I'm just like, we don't. And that is why we are looking for these big signs, because we don't appreciate the little stuff. Yeah. And so that is just a encouraging thing for, when one of my clients, when she said, oh, I went to therapy for the first time in my life, I said, go out to dinner, have a drink, eat a steak. Yeah. And she was like, but why? I said, because that's a big deal.
It is.
Yeah. It's a big deal. It's not for the world, but that's a big deal for you. Let's celebrate it, Yeah. And so that you are actively pursuing healing for yourself, it's a big deal. Like, I just want us to be more, and I think we get more in places of worship than we do in places of just, oh Lord, why, we get more. Right. God can speak to us more when we are open versus when we just coming to him every time we destitute and sad and need something.
No, that's good. That's really good. Let me get back on my questions. I'll be right. Taking time to write questions. Let me see. Okay, we'll see. What were your moment by moment steps that you had to take in order to get to your purpose? Was any of it monotonous or redundant?
I think a lot of it was redundant because I don't learn the first time.
Okay.
It takes, I think as the youngest sibling, I just be like, oh, let me just try it again, instead of just, taking advice from I'm free. I'm the youngest. I'm free.
Yeah.
Y'all was bound, but I'm free. I can do what I want to do. But I think it's a lot of redundancy. It's a lot of just doing things over. And I think in this season of our lives, I think God is calling us, a lot of us, back to the places that to the things and the dreams that we've left.
Yeah.
And a lot of us won't go back because we don't think that we don't think that things should be redundant. No, sometimes you got to go back. Sometimes we got to go back to that business idea that we had that we left.
Yeah.
Because it might work this time.
Yeah.
It didn't, like you said before, stuff don't be a bad. It's not that it's bad. It's just some things are not conducive to the season or to our capacity. And so because I have a bigger capacity now, it's some things that now I can go back and revisit that I might actually be productive in. And so for me, purpose, I'm big on connection and I'm big on partnership. So I like to do stuff with other people. That's my thing. People always are just like, well, you got to do it on your own. And that's cool. But I think God called me for partnership. Mm-hmm. That is I love meetings. I love sitting and talking to people, and I love it. Like that's my thing. I'll never forget when me and David a decade ago had the conference, was joking about Freedom Fellowship. Like it was a joke, but it was just, we had a good time coming up with names for his church for years later. Like that's just that's my thing. So I think for me, I would not be here without other people. Yeah. And so I've been intentional about that though. I always pray for divine connections. I've been that way since I was in high school. I always pray for God's people. Lord, send me your people. Whomever you have for me, send them my way and let me be open to receive your people. I don't choose friends. I've never been that way. Everybody that has come into my life legit has come out of just thin air. And it's been like, dang, where you come from?
Like how I'm about to start changing my prayers. Because when you said that, I was like, wow, I need to start praying for that.
Listen, I pray regularly. My best friend from college, we both sang in concert choir, and we were not friends. We were not cool. We had been singing in the choir for years. We became best friends because somebody on the bus said, oh, Krystle, she pray. Come pray for her because she's been really sad. And I went into a bathroom, prayed for her. We've been best friends ever since. That's how our friendship was founded on prayer.
Yeah.
My other homeboy, like that's just, I have so many divine things about people. Like it just don't make sense. Like how did you get here? But that is my specific everyday. Lord, send me your people, whomever you have, because I can't do this by myself.
Yeah.
I can't do it by myself. And that has pushed me into trying stuff and failing, because we afraid to fail. Yeah. Purpose is about failing.
Experiments. They just experiment. Sometimes the hypothesis didn't do what you want to do, and that's okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's, but I think, white folks are okay with failing. They've been socialized to fail, but we are deathly afraid of losing.
It go back to the way you were raised. Do you know how many people looked at me crazy, including my big brother David, when I told him I was quitting Thrive? Oh, oops. When I told him I was quitting, I'm edit that out. Because we actually worked there together. He still works there. Mm-hmm. And he was like, what you about to do? I said, the Lord told me to quit. I'm out this mud. And then let me tell you how much crazier I looked. Because then I started working somewhere else part-time right after. The Lord was like, I didn't tell you to do that. I quit that after 2 weeks. Everybody was like, what's wrong with you? I was like, I don't know. I was going crazy. I was like, I don't know, but I feel strongly that I ain't supposed to be here. I don't know where I'm supposed to be.
Listen.
But it ain't supposed to be.
But this the thing, Doc. purpose is solely tied to your obedience.
Yeah.
And if you're not obedient, you ain't gonna never you're gonna stay in a cycle.
Yep.
It's
And I
gonna be
tell
just
people, I tell people all the time that you always have a choice, but you should choose obedience. That's one of the things I say, because I feel like we think, well, the Lord said I have to do that. He didn't say you don't have to do anything, but you should choose obedience. Like that, like you, but you don't have to. You're not, he's not forcing your hand. He's actually wants you to walk with him down this journey, and you could choose to shit out on the side.
Listen.
Yeah.
And my moment, a few years ago, I up and left Chicago and moved to Texas. Mm-hmm. I was just like, hey guys, I quit my job. I moved to Texas. That was my thing. I didn't have a job lined up, didn't have a place to live, didn't have, and everybody was just like,
Krystle, what you doing?
Sis. And I said, this is what the Lord is. I really do feel like I'm this, like I can't sleep at night. I can't function. Like I can't rest. I can't, I have to go. Like it consumes my thought. That's how deep it was. It was just like, whew, like y'all can sit and be unhappy, but I'm going to go and
that's the word right there.
Listen, y'all can rest and be content in your sadness, but I'm going to just go see what it's about. If it ain't working, guess what? I can always come back home. Yep. And that's what I had to, and I ended up coming back home. But those 2 years, the most meaningful 2 years, and got me to, I'm not doing do stuff that I'm not happy doing. Like that's when I learned that there. If I'm not happy, because our parents raised us, you just got to be unhappy.
Yeah.
If you making money, you should just be unhappy. It's okay. Yeah. My father makes fun of me like, because I know you got to be happy. And I'm like, Dad, is that such a bad thing? He was like, listen.
To them, yes. It's all about just doing what you have to do. Like, and it's so crazy. I'm talking to not necessarily because me and my parents don't really have this conversation, but people that are older than me here in Atlanta, because it's so interesting how generations are integrated in Atlanta. Where I come from, we do not talk to people. But anyway, I'm talking to the older generation, these older ladies, and like the conversations we have, I just be like, I'm not gonna do that. And they be like, and they look at me like, what you mean? I was like, what you mean? What I mean? I'm not doing that. Like, I hear that you nominated me, but and especially when you know your purpose and you know your identity, that does not align with my purpose or my identity. Get my name off of that. And I get that there are some things that we're supposed to do just because. I do get that, but I also think that those things still align with your purpose. I believe that. Like even the things that aren't fun and don't make sense and all this stuff, like it still has to align with your purpose. I'll give you a prime example. So me and Krystle were both raised in this church that has all these different layers. Okay. So it's a local church, district, diocese, national. All right. So for my district, they wanted me to work with the youth or whatever. And I was like, God, on this phone call, I'm telling these people no. Like, just so you know, I already know where it's going. I'm telling these people no. And the Lord tricked me because they asked me to basically do what I do for Prosper Project for them. And I was like, oh, so I can't say no. Okay. Got it. Right. And even in that though, right, the point I'm trying to make is I'm doing my purpose even in a serving capacity that I didn't think I was going to do. Right. But because it aligns with my purpose, I said yes. Now they asked me to be the secretary, the treasurer, any of those things, I would be like, nah, that ain't for me. But because they asked me to do something that aligned with my purpose, I was comfortable saying, okay, I can do this for 4 years, and I think when we're aligned with our purpose, again, even the things that we don't really want to do, we can do them because they align with us. Yeah. And we can make decisions based on that. And so even though I'm not really my happiest working on this, I know it aligns with my purpose, so I'm okay doing it. Yeah. But I'm with you though. You gotta be happy. Yes. I believe it.
And there are, but I think though, so let's talk about happy though. So by happy, I don't mean that you are waking up excited and joyful but because, like you said, because you know that it's in the will of God, you're at peace with it, right?
Yeah.
And being in the will of God is what makes me happy.
Yeah.
Not wasting my time is what makes me happy.
That's the
And
word.
so I think if we learned and we stood 10 toes down on those things, a lot of us people listen, baby, you would probably not do half the stuff that you're doing
Yeah.
if you stood 10 toes down on, because it was never, like Jazz said, we grew up in this church. And so I'm in a different church now. And I didn't know people got paid to work in church. I legit didn't, I didn't know that was a thing. Now, working in ministry has always been a dream of mine, but it's never been something that I thought was really a tangible, like, so and it's in my nature to just do stuff like, oh, okay, it's the church. I'm gonna serve, I'm gonna work. And after I lost my job, I was able to devote a lot more of my time to church. And that's when my pastor said, I really want this to be full time, but for now, this is the work that I have for you to do. And it's been some of the best, it's been some of the happiest, because I had to go back to a dream that I had when I was a kid. And God reminded me, remember when you said you wanted to be a staff person at a church?
Yeah.
And now now I'm the only person on staff at my church, and so God does things in timing. And if we don't know, if you just out here saying yes to everything, imagine how many things you're missing out, the things that you're missing out on, because sometimes God wants you to say no, and he wants you to mean that thing.
No is just as holy as yes. I say this all the time to people,
Listen.
especially at church. I tell people all the time, no is just as holy as yes. I don't know who told y'all. Like, and even when you think about Jesus, like Jesus told his mama no at first when she asked him to to find some wine. He was like, this ain't got nothing to do with me. Like he said, and like, I think that no is just as holy as yes. I'm gonna leave that. And I'm gonna move back to Krystle. I think that what you're saying though goes back to what you've been talking about this whole time. And I keep harping on it because it's so good. Is that if you don't know your identity, you'll say yes to anything.
Yeah.
If you don't know your purpose, you'll just, like, oh, I'm saying, and it's not just for us church folks. This is for people in their families, right? Because the people may not be able to identify with us church people. But if your husband needs and your children need it and all this stuff and your grandparents and your, everybody, depending on what stage you're in, you'll just say yes to anything and forego what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Because you don't have an identity outside of this group of people. That have, and I'll be honest, I shared with Krystle, I quit my church job. I had an identity crisis. I come from church workers. Right? My daddy a deacon, my mom, I come from church workers. So I was like, am I even saved? Right? Don't save people work at church. like I had that. The Lord was like, girl, calm down. I'm like, okay, God, like, okay. And I think because my identity was wrapped up in the fact that I serve people at church. Right. And now that I'm learning what my identity really is and what my purpose really is, I may go back on staff later on in 20 years from now, but it's going to look totally different because I'm doing it for a different motive. And I don't think that was my motive at the beginning, but it definitely was my motive for not quitting. Right.
Yeah.
People just work at church. That's what you do. I don't understand. We talk about the people that don't do nothing. We talk about the people that come and go home, like you don't usher, you don't do nothing. And so my identity and my purpose, knowing that, can help you steer your entire life. Okay, so my last question, well, I always say it's my last question, but it's not. My next to last question is, what is your purpose? Like, succinctly, what is Krystle Mason's purpose? Oh, okay.
That's a good question. So I believe today in this season, that my purpose is to help others find strategy, find self, and find confidence within themselves. And and I say for other people because that's also the purpose for me in this season, for myself. This is the season of self-work. It's the season of really being intentional about the type of human being I want to be. And so I am 120% committed to helping other people figure that out too, whatever that looks like. So I knew when I was asked to be chief of staff, that was in God's will, because I am helping strategize, and the strategy is significant from the top down, from the pastor to the people who are serving in ministry to the people. It just made sense. It was scary because I've never done it before. I didn't know what I was doing in the beginning, but it has provided me a lot of opportunity to just like, man, I really, people don't have strategy, and people don't understand the importance of strategy. I was one of those people. I was just like Jazz said, you just go to school, you get a job, you have fun on Saturday, you go to church on Sunday, you go to bed, you get up and do like that. And for that season, that was the strategy that I needed to be able to be fully prepared to work for myself. And so I just believe that God put me here to help build, uplift, and motivate other people, whatever that looks like. But that starts with me. That is not absent of me, because I'm gonna choose me every time too. And so that, that's not the cleanest answer, but that is
it makes sense though.
Listen, that is what pushes me and propels me out of the bed every day.
That's good.
So
no, that's good. We're not done yet, but you're gonna put Krystle's information in the show notes. So if you want to reach out to her, now she's not free, y'all. So don't be talking about I heard you on that podcast. Don't do that. So we'll put her information so you can reach out to her so she can help you strategize your life as well. So my last question is, if people get nothing else from this podcast, what is the one thing you want them to leave with?
I want people to leave with the unwavering devotion to figuring out who you are. If you don't do anything else with your time, with your talent, and with your treasure, invest in figuring out who you are, not who people want you to be, not that you are so and so's mother, not that you are such and such's husband. Outside of that, who are you, and what is it? What things do you desire out of life? I think that is huge for the men watching. And this has been my soapbox all year. My mentor is like, you really stuck on this. I am. For the men watching, get y'all some mentors, some coaches, and some quality, women. I think we are much more, prone to seeking help. But I told the Lord, the first question I'm asking the next man that I date, who mentors you?
Yeah.
Who pours into you? And if he like, girl, I pour into myself. I'm packing up my stuff and I'm walking.
No,
we need help, y'all. We need help.
So here's the thing. This is supposed to be our last question. And it ain't got nothing to do with purpose, but it do. That has actually been my prayer for my husband as well, is that he has solid friendship. Woo. Like I have seen the difference. Going to that Caucasian church changed my life, y'all. Listen. I don't care what y'all say. I have seen the difference in men that live and do life with other men. And versus my friends who got what, like, I love y'all. Let me stop talking. So yeah, I just see the difference. And it has really opened my eyes to, you're a different man. You are a different caliber of man by default because you have people holding you accountable.
Period.
Like that. Period. Right. Period. Like I don't have nothing else to say. And this morning at the gym, I heard some hurt men talking because they
Mm.
girls in their lives and hurt their feelings. And I literally looked at them and said, y'all need Jesus in therapy because this is too much. And they was like, shut up, Jazz. And I was like, no, like, because you should not be hurt. This one boy, and I quote, well, I ain't quote, but what he said was basically, man, I got last year. I ain't finna let nobody else get me. And then he started calling the women hoes and all that. He didn't say the big word. He was like, yeah, I'm not letting none of them hoes. And I was like, one woman hurt you. Meanwhile, we get hurt every other month. One woman hurt you. And he says, I say to the women, something to the effect of something like she messed up, so this what you get, basically. And I'm just like, and finally, the one married man that was there, he spoke up and was like, man, you gotta let that hurt go. And I said, thank you so much for talking, because I'm confused about, well, and his wife was like, she was just like, you sitting here acting like you not happy at home. No,
listen.
Like, what you doing?
Listen. But and maybe I should, I cannot assume that every woman has everybody. Get you some quality people. The Bible says wisdom is the principal thing. Yeah. We can do nothing without wisdom. Yeah. And baby, we don't know a lot. And so if we are not seeking people who know stuff, who can call us on our mess, who can tell us, who we allow to get to know us, we are not going to be whole people. And so, it is my goal to be whole. It is some work that Krystle is doing for Krystle. Yeah. But I have the same expectation of anybody that shares my air. Yeah. I'm not asking for perfection, but there has to be a level of accountability that we have. And especially for the brothers, like, y'all got to talk to somebody.
Just be heard.
And just be hurt. And just say, man, sis was trash. She hurt my feelings. That's all.
So now we can go. I can go somewhere with that.
Now we can do something, And to the women, it's okay, because a lot of women have taken on I'm not gonna play that I'm hurt, so I'm gonna go treat these men how they treat. Okay, well, now we just out here with venereal diseases and still single, and we still unhappy.
We all upset together.
But seek help. Yeah. Figure out who you are. Time is not on our side. Yeah. So that is if you haven't heard anything else, choose yourself and seek some help, child. Please.
All right. Well, thank you, life coach, soon to be Dr. Krystle Mason.
Listen.
This was a great episode of the Purpose Podcast with Dr. Jazz. And yeah, like I said earlier, we will put her information in the show notes. So if you want to reach out to her and be one of her clients, please feel free. Tell her I sent you.
Please.
And that's all I have for this episode. And I'll see you all next week. Bye. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Purpose Podcast with Dr. Jazz, where we are journeying to purpose together. On this week's episode, I got to sit down with Krystle Mason, and I loved everything that came up in this episode, how our purpose should serve ourselves, how we should be real with ourselves about what we really want. I really enjoyed this conversation. This conversation is the first episode in our Summertime Find series, so be sure to tune in all summer long. We'll be talking to different types of coaches about how to be summertime fine from their point of view. And I hope you all enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next week. Bye.